We are live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It is January 12th, 2022, and this is the first of what should be 3 budget workshops for the Milford Board of Education. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, so can we have a roll call for attendance, Ms. Griffin?
Yes, Adam DeYoung,
Here.
Megan Doyle,
Here.
Andrew Fowler,
Here.
Rita Hennessy,
Here.
Emily McDonough Souza,
Here.
Ollie Mulrennan,
Here.
Una Petrosky,
Here.
Betsy Ratner,
Here.
Cindy Wolf Boynton,
Here.
and Susan Glennon.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. All right, board members, so tonight we start our discussion of Dr. Kutaya's 22-23 funding request. We'll go through the questions that have been submitted, giving time with each for any clarifying questions that you might have. And just so that the public knows, a copy of the questions will be posted tomorrow morning on the Milford Board of Ed, the Milford Public Schools website, the Board of Ed meeting resources page. And then tomorrow same time, same place, we will pick up wherever we leave off tonight at the end of our meeting. So I'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Kutaya to start us off with the questions and answers.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. Thank you, members of the Board of Education, and thank you to cabinet members who are present this evening to help us go through the great questions that the Board of Education provided us. I'm going to share my screen so that we can go question by question. I am working on 3 screens here at my desk, so I'm not going to be able to see you in full because I'm sharing my screen. So Ms. Glennon, if I miss something like a hand or a gesture, please let me know. And I'll be working off of my other screens to view some other text to support budget answers, okay? So let's get started with questions. Okay, Pam, can you give me a thumbs up if you see that? Because I could see you. Great, thank you. Okay, so we are going to take this question by question, and our great cabinet team members are going to be helping this evening. So I think Dr. Fedigan kicks us off with question number 1.
Thank you, Dr. Kutaya. Good evening, everyone. The first question had to do with providing the most current curriculum cycle and calendar for revision for this work. And so there is a document there that's linked, PDF document for your review. And you'll probably also recall that on Monday night, Dr. Kutaya also in her board presentation for the budget outlined the number of curriculum areas that we're looking forward to for our 22-23 system improvements. And those will be discussed later throughout this presentation.
Any questions from board members?
That's pretty self-explanatory at this point.
Yeah. Again, I can't see you all nodding or shaking, so. All right, number 2. What is the cost to expand world language to PK4? As you know, we have K through 3 now. Total request is a 1.0 FTE that includes the expansion of PK4 and grade 4. The allocation specifically for pre-K4 is a 0.2 FTE, and the remainder 0.8 will be assigned to grade 4. The cost of this FTE is $65,000.
So I have a clarifying question. So then as we expand, so next year, the following year, I would expect you would go up to grade 5 so that we would cover all the way up to the end for elementary school. And then we would do pre-K 3 at some point. Is that
So
in the plan?
obviously, depending on what financial challenges or opportunities we face next year, it could be that in 23-24, we complete the elementary band of PK 3 through 5. That would be our vision, but also it just depends on what that looks like.
So can it be assumed that the FTE would be about the same?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. DeYoung, do you have a question?
That was my question. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on this? All right, I see none.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Question number 3, how many world language teachers do we currently have for the elementary program? At this time, we have 6 world language teachers for the 8 elementary schools. With the proposed budget for 22-23, by adding 1 more, that'll give us 7 teachers for the 22-23 school year at the 8 elementary schools to instruct grades pre-K 4 through grade 4.
Questions on this, board members? Okay, I see none.
Okay.
Board members, if I miss your hands, please speak up.
Question 4A has to do with the, actually question 4 has multiple sections. Dr. Fedigan and I are going to share these. And it has to do with the system improvements outlined in my letter to the board and the executive summary. So we'll start with 4A. The implementation of the preschool and kindergarten interdisciplinary units of study, including intentional play and executive functioning for learners. So we did pilot some of this year. The pilot informed the next steps that we'll be taking next in 22-23. So the approximate cost based on our estimate currently, and I will have to go on record to correct something I said on Monday night. We'll be piloting or be moving into 5 preschools and 9 kindergarten classrooms. On Monday night, I said 8 preschools and 9 kindergarten. So there is an adjustment there on the preschool side. So the costs involved in developing the curriculum is $6,000. Purchasing the instructional supplies for those 14 schools, classrooms, pardon me, is $77,000. Professional learning for those teachers is $4,000. And then any furniture and fixtures that we need will be $124,000.
Questions on this?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Boynton.
So thank you so much. So do all 4 of these aspects have to occur at the same time?
So it would be preferred because many of the units of study depend on the supplies that we're able to purchase. And the climate of intentional play and executive functioning does rely on revisiting how we purchase furniture and fixtures for those rooms. So in the dream is what we have become used to hearing about is flex furniture. And that is opportunities for kids to work together. And that is the climate within which we're trying to build our preschool and kindergarten classrooms. So is there room for doing parts of this? So Ms. Wolf-Boynton, we chose to go the route of taking small bites of the apple by not doing all preschool and all kindergarten in 1 year. So we decided to do a fewer number of classrooms, but do it right, like do the whole thing in that room, as opposed to just doing new units of study across 24 kindergarten rooms. We decided to just pick 9 and do and implement the whole package. So can we slice that again? Yes, but we would prefer to go whole package in each room.
So I'm sorry, just to get the numbers right. So this is for 9 classrooms.
9 kindergarten and 5 preschool.
And so would the goal then to be to do a similar number next year?
So I would like us to do at least 1 classroom in every elementary school each year until we get them all done. And that would be in the kindergarten realm. And we don't have preschool classrooms in every building. So we would prioritize those based on our financial situation and where we are in that school building.
Okay, thank you.
So minimally, I'd like to add 8 more classrooms in 23-24, giving me another one in each elementary school.
So it's plus 1 additional classroom in each elementary school is what you'd like to grow it 1 each year in each school. That's
Yes,
where you're
ma'am.
getting the 8 from. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. Our pre-COVID budget, I think it was 19-20 budget, included a pilot program for flex furniture for kindergarten. Did that money, I assume, never got spent because of COVID, or did it get spent?
I think that was not just for flex furniture. It was to include some of the elements that we're doing here. But to answer the question, we did not purchase flex furniture for kindergarten in 19-20.
So even with the pilot program that we ran this past year, that didn't include any of the furniture and fixtures?
Dr. Fadigan, I don't believe we purchased furniture for those pilots, did we?
We did not.
Okay. And if, God willing, we can get back to pre-COVID times, but if we can't, would we hold on purchasing this and hope that, moving forward, because, the flexible furniture was sort of one of those dreams that we had to put on hold. So I'm just wondering about because it's a big number, important to the efforts of, moving towards intentional play, certainly, but I'd hate to see us budget this line item and not be able to use it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Mr. DeYoung. So I think we go the route of hoping that at least by the spring of 24 or 23, we'll have opportunities to invest in the furniture side of this, even if we don't start the school year with it, right? Another less preferable option is to purchase it in 22-23 for use in 23-24, so that we could start the school year. Worst case scenario, COVID is still around to the point where it's still social distancing, right? Because that's the problem,
Right.
is the social distancing part. So furniture doesn't go bad if we were to purchase it in the spring of 23 and use it in the fall of 23. I understand that crosses budget years. And that's kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit. But we built this budget with the goal of being not socially distanced and being able to implement these 14 classrooms in full.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Doyle?
According to my, yeah, go ahead. Are you okay, Ms. Doyle?
She's okay. So just to clarify for me, Dr. Kutaya, the concept of the intentional play, it's a very specific concept. It's not, it's a designed concept. So there are units of study are designed around this concept of intentional play. It's not just letting kids go off to play. It's very,
No.
and I don't want to say structured, but it's
Very
intentional.
intentional. The word intentional might be a good one to use here. It is well planned out. It is maybe not structured, but scaffolded, right? So you're going to scaffold learning through play. And it's not just wake up in the morning, show up and let 20 kids just do what they want. There is the reason why we're calling it units of study is that curriculum wise, we're actually going to lay out a scope of what we want our young people to know and be able to do. And the units of study will actually bring some commonality across all preschools. So if there's a unit in transportation, let's say, that's happening across the district in every preschool.
Dr. Kutaya, can I just add something with regard to another reason why we're specifically saying intentional play is because you'll recall we have our district model for high quality instruction, and intentional planning is a critical part of our model for high quality instruction. And that's a pre-K-12 model. for high quality instruction. So even in our early childhood classrooms, to your question, Mrs. Glennon, there is intentionality for planning for those learning experiences. And that would be expected from our district model for high quality instruction, right? Whether we're talking about a middle school classroom or a primary classroom in preschool.
Right, okay. So this is why I would think at the very least, the first 3 items would be necessary to move this forward. Furniture, maybe you can get away with, not having so much, the specific furniture, but certainly the curriculum development, the instructional supplies, and the professional learning all go hand in hand with the development of these units of study.
I would just want to ask Dr. Fettigan and her team to go back and look at the furniture and fixtures line, because so to the degree that we don't want to purchase tables and comfy chairs and little mini couches, as you might see in a future kindergarten room, I would not want us to cut the 124 to the point where we can't buy water and sand tables.
Right, okay. That's a good point.
Be careful. Furniture does not mean fun couches. It's not the only thing that's going to be in that line. So if we need to, we're happy to provide more specifics on what that 124 scope wise includes. Okay. So
That
let's
might be a
add
good
that
idea.
again to our list, please. Okay.
Ms. Petrosky?
That actually just answered my question. Thank you.
Ms.
We'll
Doyle?
provide information.
Okay, I think I got it to work now. My question is, assuming this goes forward, how many more years will it be until all kindergartens have classrooms have the intentional play materials, and from there? And then the second question is there, I remember when I'm in elementary school, so they would stay in the classroom. It's not the entire kindergarten class of the entire elementary school will be able to access these. It's the individual class only. They're not cycling through and that. Okay.
So off the top of my head, I don't have the enrollment breakdown in front of me. I can bring it up during this meeting though. I think there are like 24 kindergarten sections in the district at the 8 elementary. Am I right? I don't know if any cabinet member may have that.
I'm pulling it up now.
So if you do the math, if we take 8 each year, it'll take us, 3-ish years. And that doesn't include the pre-K. But when you have a large school district with multiple schools as we do, then that's just the way you do it, right? So we'll do 8 a year. And that's why we felt like it was important that we roll out at least one classroom in each elementary school each year, that we don't just do one elementary, like all a pumpkin, and then we move the JFK and do all JFK, that we wanted to spread it out across the 8.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
And if I could, Dr. Kataya, there are 22 kindergarten sections in the current year.
Thank you, Mr. Riccitelli.
Sure.
And that number can change based on enrollment.
Yes.
All right, I don't see any more questions answered. Hands up.
4B, the development of Milford measures, including growing big dreams, which also includes the mastery-based diploma assessment as required by legislation. This is a very hard question to answer. So please don't take that number of 90,000 and assume that it is only going toward Milford measures and growing big dreams, because Milford measures is about assessments that cut across all all grades, all schools, and also includes curriculum and professional learning that's cutting across all grades and all schools. So 90,000 is not just a Milford measures item. If you parcel that out, it also has to do with the revision of 3-5 literacy. It also includes the professional learning we're going to provide for teachers in PK2 literacy, etc. So This 90,000 is not exclusive to Milford Measures, but it's more of a conglomerate of a little bit of here, a little bit of here, a little bit of here. So let's just say we propose, let's cut out our Milford Measures work. This 90,000 actually doesn't go away because it doesn't just belong to Milford Measures. It belongs to all those other curricular professional learning assessment pieces that are in the curriculum cycle. So the 90,000 is not exclusive to this answer. Does that make sense?
It does. Board members, is that clear? Anybody have a question?
All right. Seeing none, and I can't really see you anyway.
Ms. Petrosky does. Hold on.
I'm sorry. I just wanted a little bit of clarification on that. So that $90,000 is inclusive of, I get it, curriculum, professional development across all grades, all schools. So would it be correct to say that perhaps some of the costs in I would be included in there as well, or are these additional to?
And I and J and K, not
Right.
K, and L. Yes.
So they are additional to that 90, or some of it is
Is it-
included in that 90?
Yeah. There's nothing exclusive in that 90 that belongs only to Milford Measures. Maybe a third-party consultant that we're bringing in to help us with mastery-based diploma assessment, but that consultant's also working on other assessment pieces. So that 90 is not exclusive to Milford Measures is the answer.
Okay.
to that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Glennon, I don't see any other, I don't know that there are any other questions. Can we go?
No, I think you can move on.
All right, Dr. Fedigan is on.
Thank you, Dr. Kataya. The next question is on implementation of phase 2 of the revised middle school schedule. And so similarly, the cost for this with regard to implementation, we're referring here to curriculum writing costs. That is the most relevant. We're really talking about the Enrichment for All, which we've recently shared with you details of that in a recent board instructional highlight, inclusive of some curriculum revision work that will happen in music, art, and CTE. And so the amount for those pieces is about $10,000.
CTE being career
career technology education. And remember, we've recently shared with the board how we're working on a 6-12 continuum there. I think that was in one of our instructional highlights from the year prior.
Questions from board members? Okay, I see none.
Thank you. The next question is on the implementation of our new pre-K2 math curriculum. And this is slated as having no budget impact, although this is a system improvement for this upcoming year. This work will be finished this summer to support our pre-K2 adjustments in mathematics instruction.
Questions, board members? Okay, I see none.
Thank you. Also on Monday night, Dr. Kataya spoke a little bit about the elementary balanced assessment, where we're going to head into that work in the area of mathematics with Dr. Nobley and our instructional coaches and elementary team. This is also slated to have no budget impact because we will be using what are referred to as open source materials that will be vetted through our instructional division, and our professional learning will be facilitated by our team as well.
Questions from board members? Okay, I see none.
I have the next. It's another question on the middle school enrichment for all curriculum. So again, you've recently had an instructional highlight where we learned a little bit about those units for enrichment for all in the area of STEM and humanities. We're scheduled to write units for our 7th and 8th graders because they will have already experienced those that happened this year for grades 6, 7, and 8. Ultimately, we're requesting $8,000 to write curriculum for those areas for enrichment for all for this upcoming school year. for 22-23.
Young?
Thank you. I had a question about, so this term enrichment for all, we see it sort of sprinkled throughout the budget document. You guys have, when you did the presentation about the new middle school schedule, you talked about it a lot. Seems very exciting and interesting for kids. Gives them something to look forward to. What does this look like moving forward for students who are already in the traditional enrichment program, and will that have any budgetary impact this year?
So to be clear, we're still, we of course still have our identification process. We're required to identify students, and it's the right thing to do, who would be eligible for enrichment services and programs. And just like we have in this past year, we will continue to offer programming for those students, grades 3 through 8. Ultimately, I think the biggest shift, Mr. DeYoung, is that we're not pulling students from their regularly scheduled classes to have those enrichment experiences. Those are scheduled to happen during a block in the student's school day so that they're not missing out on instruction in other areas. And so we'll continue to have largely students engaging in inquiry and student-directed projects of self-interest. And those are supported by our enrichment teacher in district.
And is that the enrichment teacher, is that a district-wide position, or is that specific to a certain building? How is that budgeted?
That is currently a district-wide position.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Petrosky? Ms. Petrosky? Did you have a question?
I do, yes. On the curriculum writing for the enrichment for the middle school, the enrichment for all, do you anticipate that this now becomes part of the normal curriculum writing cycle once
Yes.
this is done, or is that going to be something that, each year we're going to be adding on to?
So I do anticipate it will become a part of the enrichment, part of the curriculum revision cycle, and it's embedded, as you'll note, in the STEM and humanities areas. So naturally, as we look to revise those areas and within those departments, that's when that would occur. This year, because all of our students in grades 6, 7, and 8 experience the similar units of study for the Enrichment for All program, obviously now we have one set of novel experiences, but we'll need to have a new set for our returning students next year in grade 7 and 8.
So does that mean that you'll also be looking to have another set of novel experiences next year? Not next year, the following year.
Right. One more set. And then we'll
Okay,
go
so
into
one more
a
set.
cycle. Right.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Wolf-Boynton?
Thank you, Mrs. Glennon. I'm trying to look through the budget right now, and if I'm missing this information, I apologize. But I am curious about how much we're spending overall on writing curriculum this year, and if we keep track, are we trending a certain way? Are we spending what we spend on an average this year? Is it higher? Is it lower?
There is a question later in the document that gives you the total curriculum writing number. It's in it is number 15. It's 214,000-ish, $838. So that's on Roman numeral number 8, Ms. Wolf-Boynton, account 1118.
I see it in the question and answer. Thank you so much. So if I find that in the book.
The second part of your question, sorry, go ahead.
No, you were going right ahead, please.
So under Dr. Fedigan's leadership, there is a newly devised, as we've shared with the board over the last couple of years, a newly devised curriculum revision cycle. And as I mentioned Monday night, we started cycling up the hill, realizing we had to shift into a different gear. And so Dr. Fedigan's team has for the last 2 years revisited the cycle to make modifications. So it's called a cycle for just that. there will be times when we're reviewing elementary math, we'll revise it, and then we won't need to touch it for 5-6 years. So we're hoping that we get into a groove, a cycle that will be revising math 1 year, and then moving into implementation, and that implementation year of math turns into a revise social studies. So that we're not doing every subject every year. I think it's hard to estimate what that will look like year to year until we work ourselves through a complete cycle. Because there is a heavier lift in writing new curriculum than revising curriculum. And we did find in our initial work that there were some curriculum areas that were incredibly antiquated in writing, and then some curricular areas we were unable to find written documentation, albeit there's always a taught curriculum. It just may not be documented. So there are some areas that we're starting from scratch with. So I would ask that you ask me that question in 5 years again, where we're on more of a typical cycle.
At some point, and I don't think that this is the right time, but at some point, I would love reminding, and I'm probably not the only board member who needs reminding about where we were when we started and where we are right now and where we're headed.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the curriculum revision cycle real quick. That's linked in number 1. And that actually goes back to 1920. So you could at least look at a short rear view mirror from starting in 1920, which is, I think, when Dr. Fedigan and her team rewrote the cycle.
Yes.
And it is color coded with a little key. So if you need interpreting, maybe tomorrow night, you can ask us some questions on that. Okay.
That would be great. Yeah, at some point, though, I think it would be interesting to know how many, what areas sat stagnant for very long periods of time. And, just curriculum is always a topic of conversation. So, but not for tonight. So thank you.
It is a big driver of what we're doing and a key leverage to improvement planning for Milford Public Schools. So maybe an instructional highlight in the future, a kind of a review and a new teach for some new board members on the curriculum cycle. Okay. Sorry, I got confused with all my tabs and stopped sharing. So here we go again. Okay.
And while you're looking, the curriculum cycle was extended from its original, if I recall correctly, from its original iteration. It was maybe 6 years and now it's 7 years.
Yeah, we're on, I think it's gonna be a solid 7 years moving forward.
So it's already been extended once to spread things out a little bit. Ms. Ratner?
Thank
You have
you.
to take, there you go.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming. My question is, in regards to the professional development for this wonderful enrichment for all, being it's going to be so innovative and new curriculum and needing to be done yearly, are you going to allocate, and how you came up with the 8,000, I'm not sure. It's a tricky situation to figure that out each year so that it can be fresh and new with new mentors, etc.
So I anticipate Dr. Fedigan and team using about the same to develop the last set of enrichment courses. The professional learning, we have an incredible crew of instructional specialists and coaches and supervisors that are going to bring professional learning to this. And eventually, as you know, Ms. Ratner, my core belief is that our best professional learning occurs inside of classrooms with our incredibly talented teachers. So if we could get teachers into other teachers' classrooms and learn from one another, that's almost a cost-free minus substitutes solution to this.
And the curriculum writing experience in and of itself is a very rich professional learning opportunity for our staff. And, Dr. Kutaya and I are very committed to not just adopting programs, but ensuring that our talented staff is writing and designing curriculum for our children in Milford Public Schools. So that's an important piece, I think, to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. Can you give me all of us an idea of, by keeping curriculum writing in-house, what is that savings in comparison to using a teacher's college or things like that? And I'm assuming if we were using something of that variety, it would still need to be revised and adapted to the system. So how does that help by keeping it in-house here?
So this question could take on a whole 20-minute answer, so I won't do that, okay? So let's use Teachers College for an example. Technically, that's not a full-blown curriculum. It comes with, it's a material and resource with a scope and sequence. And I would venture to say, just to build on what Dr. Fedigan said, that curriculum writing in-house is beneficial at the top of my list because of the professional learning it offers for teachers. And when you hand somebody a Teachers College teacher's manual, that's not really knowing and learning the curriculum. That's just kind of reading from a book. But when you engage teachers in curriculum writing, it requires them to know the standards that are based on state and federal standards. So there is a process of knowing what we want students to know and be able to do from the lens of the professional. So I would venture to say that there is a cost savings, but more importantly, there is a growth opportunity that we would be missing if we just bought boxes. And one of my, again, core beliefs coming into Milford is that we don't go and purchase a box from a publisher and say, here, teachers, go teach it. I believe in the profession of our profession. We have professionals in classrooms. We should give them opportunities to make decisions actually about what is taught at the curriculum writing stage. That empowers teachers. And a verb that we've come up with in the last couple of years is that we like to Milfordize things. And so we take the standards and make them our own for Milford kids. So I have not, Ms. Doyle, done the exact cost savings of what it would be to go and purchase a social studies curriculum somewhere and then just hand it to teachers. We haven't engaged in that cost analysis because at our core, we believe that's not the right way to go for our professions and our professionals and our kids in Milford.
Great, thank you.
Enough information?
Yes.
Dr. Kutaya, am I correct that this has been a longstanding practice in Milford to have our staff doing the curriculum writing?
I can't speak to what happened prior to Dr. Fedigan and me.
My recollection that we've been doing it this way for quite a while.
Okay. All right. Is it okay to move on?
Any other questions on this item, board members? I see none, Dr. Kutaya, so we can move on.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Fedigan, let's roll.
All righty. So the next question is in regard to the implementation of our middle school math pilot. And so as you can tell from our curriculum revision calendar, we're continuing the work in math curriculum in grades 6 through 8. And so the requested amount of approximately $15,000 is to cover a resource, including one called Illustrative Math, a learning resource. And there's also there an additional $2,000 to support professional learning for our staff in their implementation of that resource.
Any questions from board members?
That would be an example, Ms. Doyle, of our writing the math curriculum, and now we're going to pilot the appropriate resources to see what matches our needs. So illustrative math actually would come with a scope and sequence and everything.
Right.
But we're going to test out that resource compared to the math curriculum we've written. All right, next one.
The next question has to do with the development of teacher capacity in the area of foundational literacy skills, pre-K2. And as the board is aware, this has to do with some recent newly adopted legislation. And so as you can see, we have requested monies through our remedial reading account. And that is in the amount of approximately $3,000. And that is for us to vet an approved list of resources that we anticipate from the CSDE, from the Connecticut State Department of Education. And very fortunately, we have our talented team of instructional coaches led by Ms. Morrow, our instructional supervisor, who will be able to provide ongoing embedded professional learning in this very important area. You know, Dr. Kutaya and I both recognize how critically important it is for us to strengthen early literacy skills as a foundation for success for our students as they move through the system.
So can you explain what the remedial reading account is?
The remedial reading account would be, that's a good question, separate from, for example, the 105 account, which is just the overall ELA literacy account. This is to do more with the science of reading, this legislation. And so that's why this would be an account that would be different from just core ELA.
That's strictly a
Writing.
budgeting. That's strictly budgeting for us. So we have two reading lines, one's ELA and one's remedial reading. So that's just the budgeting thing for us.
It's a budgeting name. It does not mean remedial reading is the
Right.
service. It's not the service.
All right, thank you for the clarification. Mr.
Good
Dion?
question.
Thank you. I was just hoping you could provide us with the actual language out of the legislation, or even just a link to the piece of legislation that this refers to, just so we can review that.
Yes, we can provide that.
Thanks.
And as I mentioned on Monday, as soon as we get more guidance, we'll provide the board with maybe even an update in a meeting on what that means for us. But we'll send you what we have.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay, I see none.
So the next two questions actually will help show the trajectory of our work in the area of literacy, extending from pre-K2 into the upper elementary and then beyond in the middle school grades. With regard to the new 3 through 5 literacy curriculum, this is really around literacy. We're talking about reading, writing, and word work, right? So literacy broadly, the implementation guides that will be written in this area and supported into the 22-23 school year will begin this summer. As indicated in our earlier comments in another area. And the approximate cost to implement the 3 through 5 literacy curriculum are inclusive of curriculum writing costs, resource text adoptions, and of course, professional learning. And when you look at our curriculum revision cycle, you would notice that we've embedded professional learning throughout the 7-year cycle. We know that how important it is when we're adopting new curriculum and resources to support with ongoing professional learning, our staff.
Questions? Ms. McDonough Souza?
Can you just explain what resource text adoptions means?
So text adoptions would include materials that teachers may use, for example, for small group instruction. For
At the
reading.
elementary level, you wouldn't necessarily have a textbook in literacy. You would have 6 copies of the same short story.
Leveled text, right?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? Yes,
Mr. Dion.
Mr.
has his
Dion.
hand up. Yeah.
Thank you. Just to go to that question, to follow up on the resources text adoptions, what's the process through which those texts are chosen and purchased? I'm thinking towards our work on equity and how those are vetted through that lens.
They're mostly purchased with a reading level in mind, first of all, at the elementary level. Secondly, they are purchased up against a written curriculum. So if in grades 3 through 5, there are specific areas of literacy, comprehension, mostly in writing, what most text publishers do is they take the national standards in the areas of English language arts and they align specific titles to books that will be good in teaching setting, books that will be good in teaching plot or character development or conflict, right? And they package them based on reading level and what's happening in the standards and in the curriculum. So that is a primary goal of purchasing text for classrooms. With our lens and equity, we'll be looking for texts that represent all of our students so that every child in our classrooms could find themselves in the books that they select to read. And publishers are becoming more and more, they're developing books that are more and more accessible at different ages for all areas of diversity.
That's really great to hear. So the for lack of a better way to say it, you might get 10 books that align with a particular piece of curriculum, and you as a district can choose from those 10 which ones we would bring in district. Is that sort of how it works?
I would say not 10 titles, but 10 packages.
Okay.
So we're not, you imagine the enormity of this, Mr. DeYoung, right?
Sure.
So we're going to purchase classroom sets or instructional materials for, let's say, the 22 kindergarten rooms, right?
Mhm.
We're not necessarily, going to Barnes and Noble and saying, oh, I like this book, and oh, I like this book, and oh, I like this book. Rather, the publisher says, these are, let's say, transportation package. And you get like a dozen titles on different transportation. So vroom, vroom, my truck went vroom, vroom. And so we're buying books that would strike the interest of young people that like transportation, like all about dinosaurs. There are packages like that. So we're not necessarily choosing title by title. It's mostly through a package.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Very helpful explanation. Appreciate it.
And there are some publishers that do a better job than others. And we've aligned ourselves with some high quality publishers.
Mhm.
That's great.
Other questions, board members?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Would you say that what you just told Mr. DeYoung falls in line with our equity goal that we had talked about earlier?
Yeah, so there's work to be done in that area, Ms. Doyle, because what we're in the process of doing now is understanding how diverse and representative our classroom libraries are. So we can't make an assumption that they aren't. So this year's work in diversity is mostly to understand where we are. So our supervisor for equity and engagement, working with a team in Milford right now, and we're trying to gather data around, so what does our curriculum look like? So not even just the resources, but does our curriculum, all of our students find themselves in our curriculum? And are we providing professional learning for teachers around that? And what do the outcomes look like? And how about access to high-level courses and all that? So there's work to be done in that area. And as we select text, I know Dr. Fedigan and team are very much aware and wearing lens around ensuring that all of our kids can find themselves in materials that we have in classrooms. We have work to do in that area though. So I don't want to propose that we're going to fix it next year. Okay.
Any other questions, board members? I see none.
All right, let's
We're
roll.
on Jay.
Okay, and continuing with the extension up to middle grades language arts curriculum, As you can see in the 22-23 school year, an anticipated system improvement is to continue to move our middle school ELA classrooms and the instructional model toward workshop. And so there are requested funds there in the amount of $10,000 for curriculum work and $20,000 to support professional learning for this type of English language arts instruction. There's also a note that some of this work is being supported through our grant funds. So if there are any questions on that.
No questions? I see none, Dr. Fedigan.
Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Kutaya.
Thank you, because my other screen went blank. Appreciate it.
You are
Appreciate the
welcome.
cue. All right, the expansion of elementary world language to include pre-K 4 and 4th grade. We've already mentioned the FTE impact on this. The cost per teacher is $65,000. We will be, as we have each year in expansion, developing curriculum maps and implementation guides for both the pre-K 4 and 4th grade classes.
Covered that kind of extensively earlier. Are there any other questions about that from board members?
Back to you, Dr. Fedigan.
Thank you. So continuing with revision for grades 6 through 12 social studies curriculum, our requested funds with an approximate amount of $42,000 600 are for the writing of core social studies course curriculum. As you know, 6-12, as our students move into the upper grades in high school, there are a variety of elective courses. So this is primarily for our core courses in social studies, including resources and text adoptions with an additional requested amount of $2,000.
Do you know about how many core courses there would be?
I can get you the exact number. We're just finalizing our program of studies now, actually, for the new school year, which will be followed, of course, by student course selection, but I can follow up with an exact number for you.
Thank you. Other questions from board members? All right, I see none.
Okay. Continuing on, the next question is in regards to the implementation of the high school elective course, African American, Black, Puerto Rican, and Latino studies. This is an elective course that's required by legislation. It's recommended for our students in grades 11 and 12. And the approximate cost for us to write curriculum for this course will be $1,500. We will, of course, be using resources provided by CERC and the CSDE, as it is, again, a required course from the state. And some of the funds from our current school year will be used to purchase materials so that we can preview and implement and prepare for implementation in the year ahead. We anticipate that the state will soon be, and CERC, providing a recommended materials list for this elective course.
So it is it's required for a school district to provide it as an elective. It is not a required course, though.
That students take, right?
Questions from board members?
Mr. DeYoung, I think, raised his hand.
Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. This is more of a general question on elective courses. Is there, I assume these get reviewed every year as far as like enrollment goes on each particular course. Is there a particular threshold at which you would stop offering a particular elective as far as enrollment goes?
So I'm Dr. Gutierrez and I are both looking at each other like, who's going to take that one? So I'll give it a shot. And Dr. Gutierrez, certainly please add on. So, you know, elective courses, because they're not core, sometimes, as you can imagine, Mr. DeYoung, and I think you're poking at this a little bit, the enrollment might be have fewer students in the course than like English for 9th grade students, right? Or AP US history. However, especially when we think about the vision of the learner and wanting to ensure that our students have multiple opportunities to pursue interests across varied subjects, it is really important that we continue to offer a wide array of courses. There are some times where we'll think creatively outside of the box and provide opportunities for students to engage in courses beyond what we offer in Milford Public Schools, or through, even online learning platforms. Again, different from remote learning. But we do want to be sure to continue to offer courses, even if they have smaller numbers. Certainly, we have to operate within the budget. And so, you said, do you review them? Of course we do. That's how we kind of come up with the FTE that we're requesting, or how we make shifts. We also sometimes have our staff that's shared across schools so that we can service students who have an interest in a given area across our different school learning communities.
Okay, that's great. And
We
then
try to make
specific
sure that we're able to run them still.
specific to this elective course, is this, we're not going to have to add an FTE to offer this course?
So, right, we are not adding an FTE to offer the course. And it's important to note that we're not taking any other course off the program of studies. Like this elective course that we're required to offer is not going to replace anything else that we currently offer within our program of studies.
Okay, thanks.
We'll be able to do it with our current FTE.
Great.
Mr. Fowler?
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. So just a quick question, is just one additional elective course, or is this, or is there going to be a separate African-American elective course, Black course, Puerto Rican and Latino studies course? Is it 4 or is it just one?
Great question. Thank you, Mr. Fowler. It's just one course. It's for 1 credit, and it is a year-long course that students can elect to take as a part of their humanities graduation requirements. So students have to take a certain number of credits in English language arts, social studies, mathematics, science. So this is an example of one course that they can elect to have that credit count toward graduation. But it would be one course for the full year.
Great.
For those
Thank
students who choose. You're welcome.
Any other questions from board members? I see none.
Okay, the next question is about our middle school curriculum, actually the next two. The middle school art curriculum and music curriculum are kind of, I can probably answer them in a similar way. There's slated to be no budgetary impact, although these are system improvements for the 22-23 school year. We will begin to write and finalize the curriculum this summer with our staff led by the direction of Ms. Paris, our instructional supervisor for fine arts and library media. And what's important, I guess, I would just add is that this curriculum work will help us continue to expand the student voice and choice in the areas of fine arts at the middle school.
Great. Questions from board members? Mr. DeYoung.
Thank you. You and Dr. Fettigan, you can take it either from the art curriculum or the music curriculum, but out of curiosity, if you could give us maybe a little bit of more specifics as far as what types of what types of opportunities there will be for kids to, express that voice and choice. Is it a jazz choir? Is it a jazz band? Is it a, drum line? What type of things do you envision for this new curriculum?
So I'd like to say that I think, because we haven't written it yet, right? The sky's the limit. And we really I'm going to use an expression that someone told me recently, not think outside of the box, but imagine there isn't even a box. What I can tell you is that our students in the elementary school, pre-K through 5, have, as you know, with your own girls, have a general kind of art experience, right? Through kindergarten through grade 5. Yep. And they have the same for middle school, but they also have obviously 4th and 5th grade, I should say, the opportunity for chorus, band, and strings. Typically and traditionally what's happened in Milford is kids would move on to the middle school and they would take a traditional art course, art grade 6, art grade 7, art grade 8. And what we're really looking to do with this curriculum writing and with our middle school schedule is do exactly what you just said. Imagine opportunities for kids to maybe explore more graphic arts or pottery, right? We've got kilns in our schools. With music, we've got guitars. Could students take a guitar class? So we just think that these, and we really want to lean on our students, right? And continue to get feedback from our students about what they're most interested in. So I say that remains to be seen, and we look forward to updating you when we have that more developed.
That's great. And similarly to the previous bullet item, do you envision this requiring additional FTEs along the way, or do we have the staff already in place to implement the new curriculums?
For this current budget that is being proposed before you for school year 22-23, there is no additional FTE request.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from board members on item N or O? Did you answer O, or O was part of that explanation, right? Or do we still need to do O?
I believe I answered O, but certainly if there are any questions in particular in music, I'm happy to answer those for our middle school curriculum writing for 22-23.
I see none. So I think we can go on to P.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Brown has P.
This next item concerns the development and implementation of the pre-K to grade 12 comprehensive school counseling curriculum. This past summer, the pre-K to fifth grade work was started to develop a curriculum, and that will continue into the next school year. We're creating a new curriculum for the elementary schools when it comes to the comprehensive school counseling. We will write curriculum in the summer of 2022, and we have budgeted approximately $3,000 for that undertaking. The grade 6 through 12 curriculum work will begin this school year, has begun this school year, and we will continue that through the summer and into next school year, and we've budgeted $6,000 for next school year. Along with that, the secondary schools have requested funding in their building budgets for the use of Naviance, which is an online application computer system for middle school students and high school students. And that helps students with their college to career planning. We recognize the importance of beginning that before high school, which is why we are bringing that into the middle schools.
Ms. Wolf-Boynton?
Thank you so much. So I think that some people would hear the idea of school counselors and then hear the idea that they needed curriculums written, and they would find that those two things don't go together, because don't counselors just sit and listen to students' problems and then help them solve them?
Ms. Wolf-Boynton, your microphone went off. No.
You hit something when you were adjusting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I move my hands too much. Could you just very briefly explain to us why a curriculum is needed for school counselors?
Yes. With our school counseling program, the focus is on helping students to attain skills, learn skills that will be important for them to prevent emotional difficulties or emotional challenges as they get older. So just like we want to teach students literacy skills and math and science skills and art skills, we want to teach them skills that go along with social emotional development. And some of the big skill areas that we focus on are self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, decision-making, and positive relationships. We have a curriculum so that we can have assured experiences for all of our students across all our schools. And that way we know that no matter what school you're attending or what grade you're in, you'll get the same experience, just like you do with learning to read and learning to do math and science and art and social studies.
Thank you. So clearly our counselors do much, much more than problem solve at the moment.
Yeah, it's not all reactive.
Sounds like a lot of preventive going on as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was thinking about that today, and I think that's saying that it's not all reactive is a great way to put it. It's very proactive, and which I think is important. Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. More of a comment than a question. I will just say from personal experience, our school counselor at my daughter's school has pushed in a handful of times into their classroom this year, talking about things like the difference between bullying and being mean, anxiety around test taking, a variety of different topics that I never would have even imagined a school counselor would have helped an entire classroom with. So I was really excited to see that there is some curriculum writing in the budget for the counseling program. And I would say that it's already happening, which is really exciting and makes me really happy that we've invested in school counselors, especially at the elementary level. And I know the importance at the middle and the high school level as well.
Yeah, our new counselors did some excellent work this summer, right as they joined us so that they could hit the ground running when they began working in September in the schools.
Very good. I've just clarification on the Naviance piece to this question. So you say that there's some ongoing year-to-year costs that you mentioned first. And then there's some additional costs to expand the use of Naviance in both middle school and high school. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have I'm sorry, anything else you wanted to say?
Nope.
Any other questions from board members on item P? All right, I see none. We can go on to the next one.
Mr. Riccitelli is up.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. I have letters Q through T. So these are specific items that are in the budget book. The replacement of student furniture at the academy. The cost of that is $12,030, and that can be found in Appendix K on page 822. Why don't I go through all these, and if you have any questions, I can answer any questions on the group of them. The cardio equipment at Foreign, cost of $57,341, and that's on Appendix J on page 821. Same appendix for the replacement of the Foreign drum line. That cost is $15,000. The technology improvements, replacement of 4 servers. That's a normal replacement cycle. And that's found on Appendix K on page 822 at a cost of $44,000. And recording and storage servers for our video security camera system, also on the same appendix, and that cost is $25,950. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on that grouping.
From board members? I just wanted to clarify, I believe on Monday night, Dr. Kutaya, you mentioned in relation to the drum line that it had been, did you say at that point how long it had been since the drums had been replaced?
I did not. I was referencing that. So what comes before the board is a pared down version of all the requests that come my way throughout the district. The drum line, I have said no to, I think, for 2, maybe 3 years, ever since Miss Paris came to Milford. So if your question is about the age of the drum line, we're happy to get that information for you.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
know that-
my recollection was that it's at the point where it just has to be done.
That's why it's in front of you. I can't say no any longer.
That's fine then. I'm good with that.
Okay.
Any other questions from board members? All right, thank you.
Pass it back to Dr. Kutaya.
It's me. Thank you. Can you update us on the renovation of the TLC, the Teaching Learning Commons at Foreign? So we actually are moving forward with the TLC at Foreign. We are entering into phase 1 this year. And we just met with architects and a team at Foreign a couple weeks ago. Phase 1 will include replacing the flooring and paint and adding some furniture. In particular, there are about 4 or 5 phases to the Foreign project. We may be able to combine 2 of the phases. This phase furniture will focus on flex furniture for what we're calling, or the team is calling, the living room space. And it will provide various workspaces for collaboration and independent work. Phase 1 is an ARP expenditure, but future phases will be considered for the Board of Education's general budget in the coming years.
Questions on this? And just, I think for the sake of our newer board members, Jonathan Law's TLC was done 2 years, 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
Right before the year COVID hit, so 1920. And I would loosely use the word done. There's some other elements that need to be added, but it was started, yeah.
Begun, we'll say, begun. All right, I don't see any hands up.
I have the next question as well. Can you update us on the investments in flex furniture, and is this completely on hold due to COVID? So the flex furniture initiative is primarily on hold, with the exception of Foreign and also the implementation of pre-KK with the board's approval, of course, which will include some developmentally appropriate flexible furniture. Some of these purchases are being made out of other grant funds. As I just mentioned, ARP will be covering the Foreign Libraries phase 1.
Questions on this? I see
Okay.
none.
Back to Mr. Riccitelli.
Okay, so number 7, have we already expended all of the monies from the ESSER and CFR grants from 21-22? And the answer is yes. We've expended all of those funds from what we call ESSER 1 and the Coronavirus Relief Fund, which we refer to as CRF. So yes, we have expended those funds.
Board members? Thank you.
Okay.
I don't see any hands up.
Okay. And the number 8, have we expended any monies from the ARP grant? And ARP, as most of you know, is the American Rescue Plan, also referred to interchangeably with ESSER 3. And I've listed the amounts that we've spent to date on ESSER 2, which is $415,793.58, and from the ARP grant is $219,877.22.
Trotsky?
Could you clarify, is that ESSER 2 amount the full expenditure as well?
No, the full expenditure is about a little over $2 million.
That's right.
And we've only spent a portion of that.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Are the other funds are spoken for though, correct? They're spoken for, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. Mr. Riccitelli, could you just remind us what year the ARP money and the ESSER 2 monies expire for us to use?
Certainly. ESSER 2 has to be spent by 2023 and ARP by 2024.
Okay, thanks.
Did you say ARP was 2024?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fowler?
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. How much do we have left in the ARP fund, just for a reminder?
Mr. Fowler, that the total ARP grant is around a little less than $5 million.
Okay.
So we've only spent a portion of it to this point.
Okay. Thank you.
But to be clear, though, all of it is committed.
Right.
Correct. We had to send the application to the state with our proposed budget. So those are the things that we need to spend the money on.
Right.
So there's no like empty bucket or
Right.
money hanging out waiting for us to spend. Well, to
Correct.
spend, but not to commit, right?
Great. Thank you.
Questions on this? All right, I see no other hands up.
Okay, so number 9, will Durham, which as you know is our bus contractor, be receiving any monies from the new infrastructure law to upgrade its fleet of buses to electric buses? And this is new and it's emerging. New policies and new legislations are coming out all the time. So Durham doesn't have any specific plans at this time, except that they are aware of the trend. They know that they need to start planning for it. What we believe is that legislation will be introduced and potentially passed that all school buses will need to be electric or from alternative energy sources by the year 2035. So they are aware of it. They've committed as a corporation to meeting whatever federal or state standards there are. Although it's going to be a huge amount of money, but we all know that. It will mean their entire fleet, like all transportation carriers, turning over their entire fleets to alternative energy or electric.
Questions on this, board members? I digress, but I couldn't help the media reports on that marathon tie-up in the DC area when they had the storm, and the electric cars, people in the electric cars were having a hard time because the electricity was running out on their cars.
Yeah.
Mr. DeYoung.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. Mr. Riccitelli, is there any historical equivalent to something like this? I assume Durham has a replacement cycle for their fleet. And this would be, like you said, completely reconfiguring their fleet, which would be a significant cost. How would that cost find its way to us? And has it ever happened in the past in this type of way?
No. Well, to answer your last question first, it's never happened as long as I've been involved with local government. About 15 years or so ago, the district went out to bid, did an RFP for transportation services, and when Durham bid and other companies bid also was for an entire fleet. But the companies did not pass those initial costs on to the Board of Ed or the city. They amortized it through their per bus rate that they were going to charge. So no, to my knowledge, there hasn't been anything to this magnitude. And it's somewhat uncharted territory for transportation companies, but like everything, it's evolving. It's an evolving area that we're moving into. There's other questions that are coming up later with regard to alternative energy sources for heating and for electricity. And we know that there are policy changes that are taking place that are looking at alternative measures, and it's going to take money to turn it all over, but we'll have to see how that gets paid for.
2035 seems both very close and really far away. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I appreciate the answer.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this from board members? I see none. We can move on.
Okay, question number 10. This is on page Roman numeral 14. Can you expand on elementary school teachers added in 21-22? Should this be added 22-23, or expand on why these would be considered changes for the 22-23 proposed budget? So as Dr. Gutaya mentioned the other night in her budget presentation, in this current year, we needed 4 additional elementary school teachers because of the enrollment and where the enrollment landed, over and above what was budgeted in this 21-22 budget. So those teachers were added to this budget, but they have to be included in the bottom line starting next year because they were not budgeted for in 21-22. So this is the benchmark year that they get added, if that makes sense.
Any further explanation needed on that, board members? I think we're good, Mr. Richitelli.
Okay. Question 11, excluding the contractual obligations, what would be the % increase for the proposed budget? And it's difficult to pinpoint, a truly accurate number when excluding contractual obligations. But I've provided in the answer some rough estimates that we've come up with of what the cost of our contractual obligations are, and then backing that out of what the proposed budget has in it. So I won't read all of the dollar amounts, but you can see the amount that we attribute to wages, the amount that are contractual for employee benefits, those for utilities, contracted maintenance, for transportation, and for certain insurances. And we estimate the total to be a little over $2 million, which represents about 2.09 of the 2.28 overall increase. So without contractual obligations that I've listed here, the total proposed budget increase for this year would be about a 0.19% increase. Very unscientific, but it kind of gives you an idea of where we would be.
Is that clear for board members? Okay, I think the explanation is good, Mr. Richitelli. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And number 12 is a similar question. Of the 7 drivers that Dr. Kutaya listed in her budget letter, that equates to about 85% of the increase in the budget. What percentage of the additional 15% are contractually obligated? And if number 11 was hard, this one's even more difficult to pinpoint. Almost impossible. But to suffice it to say that most, if not all, of the remaining 15% would be taken up by contractual obligations.
Any further question on this, board members? I don't remember who submitted the question, whether this answers it. Mr. DeYoung?
It was me. So I definitely answers the question. I'm sorry to, I know it's a confusing and somewhat difficult question to answer, but I appreciate your attempt at answering it. So I don't want to mischaracterize it, but basically the budget currently as it stands with the 2.28% increase is a flat budget after that. Is that an accurate assessment of it?
Well, if you take the contractual obligations out, which obviously you can't.
Right.
But yeah, after that, but there are so many pluses and minuses. You know, in some categories you're going up, some you're going down. So I don't think it's a mischaracterization to say that it's a flat budget. But it's after you take out the things that we have no discretion over, it would be a pretty flat budget.
All right. That's great. Thanks.
Questions from board members?
Nope.
Nope, I don't see
Okay.
any.
All right. Now pass it back to Dr. Kutaya.
All right, I've got preschool again. So I think we answered this earlier. So yes, each school will have a pilot, an implementation next year. There'll be 8 elementary schools, will have 9 kindergarten rooms. And then we anticipate about 5 preschool classrooms.
That's an error that's an error on number 13 in the,
So the
says 8.
13, we just repeated the question as it was sent to us because of what
Oh,
I
I
said.
got you.
Monday
Okay.
night, right?
Very good. Yes.
So we didn't want to change that. Okay.
Yep.
Number 14 goes to Dr. Finnegan.
I'm up. Okay, so this question is, can you break out all the new costs that are associated with the new legislation? So I guess all of these items have actually been already discussed in greater detail tonight. But the first, of course, is the elective high school course, as mentioned above, for $1,500 to develop the curriculum. Cost for materials will be determined once we receive the list from the Connecticut State Department of Education and CERC. The cost for pre-K2 literacy requirements will be about $3,000 that we're requesting to vet materials once those once that list is received. And then additionally, as Dr. Kutaya spoke about earlier, we have part of our Milford Measures in Growing Big Dreams work that's related to mastery-based diploma assessment that we're requesting the $90,000. For the 22-23 school year. Again, that work is more expansive than just the mastery-based diploma assessment, as she referenced earlier. But we wanted to repeat that amount there.
Go back and revisit for me, just so that this sinks in. So you discussed earlier, you answered Ms. Petrowski's question about the $90,000 as it relates to some of the other questions. And can you reiterate that answer for me? The $90,000 includes or does not include the curriculum writing in the other?
So the 90,000 is not exclusive to mastery-based diploma assessment. Therefore, what that means is that it's cobbled together, that there isn't this one initiative where we will have this one assessment that's called mastery-based diploma assessment, that this initiative is dependent on a new social studies curriculum, a revised math curriculum, professional learning for teachers in this type of instructional model or this program. So that 90,000 isn't really for that one initiative, but all of those pieces work toward that initiative.
Okay, but it's a separate amount of money. It's a separate pot of money.
It is not a separate pot of money. That is called MBDA.
Okay.
So the reason why we're answering this question is because I highlighted it in my letter as a big initiative, and it will be for like 2 or 3 years, right? And in order to get to that, we have $90,000 of work spread across multiple curricular areas. So 15,000 may be found in the social studies bucket. 10,000 may be found in the science bucket. And all those put together will lead us to MBDA.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions from board members on this? Okay.
All right, Dr. Finnegan's up.
Sure. What is the overall cost of curriculum writing revision in all areas? And this question was asked earlier, I think by Ms. Wolf-Boyton. And just to repeat again here, the total amount of requested funds for our curriculum work is in the amount of $214,838. And that's referenced in account 1118, which can be viewed on page Roman numeral 8.
Any questions from board members on that? Pretty direct. All right, I see no other questions.
All right, Mr. Brown is up.
Next item is focused on clarifying the role of elementary school counselors. As I said a bit earlier, a big focus is on proactive intervention with our students to teach them skills related to their social emotional development. Along with doing those classroom lessons, they are beginning to work with students on student success plans, which are helping students to set goals for themselves, academic goals and social goals that they want to achieve. Providing individual counseling for some of our students, beginning career exploration in the upper elementary grades, and working alongside our school psychologists and social workers with crisis screening and responding to student crises. They are, as I said earlier, continuing to develop the comprehensive school counseling curriculum and are doing lessons in the classrooms as part of that curriculum. A good part of what they've also been involved with the first part of this year is helping coordinate how we respond to remote learning supports when students are quarantined due to COVID.
Any questions from board members? So if I may, so what I'm hearing is somewhat of a dual role between what we might think of it more of a the social emotional piece, the mental health piece, and I'll say guidance just for the sake of using that word. I'm not sure that we really use that word that often anymore. And I know we've heard, we've talked about the 612 continuum tonight, which is actually an initiative that a prior board supported to move forward. But we've heard Dr. Kutaya talk about bringing that concept age appropriately down into the elementary schools at some point going forward. So this kind of ties it all together, it seems. And for me, we've heard the American Academy of Pediatrics and a coalition of other health professionals have actually declared a state of emergency on youth mental health. So it would seem to me that this role is super important right now and will remain so going forward. I think, it's something that Dr. Kutaya has talked about since she first came to Milford pre-pandemic. I mean, but I don't see this as something going away when the pandemic is the need. I don't see the need going away when the pandemic is over. Is that Dr. Kutaya or Mr. Brown, whomever wants to speak to it, is that a reasonable expectation that this need will be with us for quite a while?
Yes, we know that over the past 10 years, we've been seeing a steady increase in the emotional and mental health needs of our young people across the country. And the COVID pandemic in some ways shined a brighter light on that and also accelerated the volume of needs among young people. And fortunate for the community of Milford with this hiring over the summer of more school counselors, we're in a better position than some of our neighbors to address this need.
Thank you.
If I could encourage board members, when you have time, to click on this link before, at the very latest, you vote on the budget next week. And I'll just bring it up very quickly. I run into the danger of almost going into a full-on presentation, which I will not. But the link takes you to the State Department's K-12 School Counseling Framework Guide. And if you want a down and dirty view, if you go to section 1, there is a chart here that shows you that school counseling, there's a full curriculum behind what all students should have access to. And there are frameworks and domains and components that are being included, as I think Mr. DeYoung was saying, into our curriculum and being implemented in our classrooms as early as kindergarten around these concepts here that are in this chart. So I won't go into a mini instructional highlight at this point, but I would encourage everyone to take a look at that link, okay?
Young,
Thank you. Not to put too fine a point on it, but are we sort of at the leading edge of this? Because it seems like this is counselors at the early elementary level seems like somewhat of a newer concept. Are we at the leading edge of it?
There are only a small number of districts in Connecticut that do have counselors, school counselors at the elementary school level. I think I don't have the exact number, Mr. DeYoung. It's safe guess is that it's fewer than 10. So in that sense, we are at the leading edge of this at the with our positioning our school counselors in the elementary schools.
And is the background of our counselors at the elementary level the same as the counselors at middle and high school, or is there different education involved in the two?
The graduate training programs are there's not specific to level. So the graduate training programs that people attend are for broad school counseling programming, and then people select which grade level they'd like to work at, and that's the same for school social workers and school psychologists, speech language pathologists, all the related service providers.
So when we are working on curriculum for the pre-K to 5, it's relatively uncharted territory that we're sort of forging for ourselves, for our community.
Well, it's definitely developmentally appropriate, but we have had mental health providers in the elementary schools for over 30 years with our social workers and school psychologists, and they were taking on some of this role, not as comprehensively as we can with school counselors in the role.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yes.
If I could add on there, legislatively, recently, it was passed that elementary students have access to school counseling. And I think districts are grappling with that. And so if for some reason Milford didn't go down this path, let's say we didn't do that with our ESSER funds, we would have to figure out a way that elementary students would have access to a school counselor. And pre-ESSER, there were only 3 at the middle school, 1 at each middle, and then the complementary set that we have at each high school. So we would be challenged to meet the letter of the law in allowing elementary students to have access to counseling. So while this is cutting edge, I think it was the intention of the legislation that this be part of elementary schools in Connecticut.
Thank you.
you know, the statement that the Coalition of Health Professionals, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, put out was a pretty strong statement. And they very clearly say that this mental health emergency is attributed not to the pandemic, not only to the pandemic exacerbated it, but that things were moving in this direction for quite a while, and that it has, really is rooted in structural inequities, including racism that existed before COVID, and that the pandemic has exacerbated the situation. So, I think it's been a festering problem for a number of years. And I know from my perspective, I think, the course of action, taking a proactive approach and tying in this severe need that we are seeing with just good practice and what's best for kids to give them the tools that they need to navigate all of this. I think for me, that's just the right thing to do, legislatively or not. So I don't know. I don't think anybody is immune to the situation, and anybody with children or anybody that is involved with children have seen this kind of developing over the course of the last number of years. So any other, go ahead, Dr. Kutaya.
This is the topic of the instructional highlight in February, our school counseling, our student supports that Mr. Brown and Dr. Fedigan will be providing to the board. So there is an opportunity to speak much more deeply about this with the board and to take more questions. So it just happens to be next month's instructional highlight.
Very good. Move on, board members. All right, thank you. We'll go on to the next set.
Dr. Fedigan.
Okay, we're moving into the 1,000 account for salaries, that series. Question 17 is about adding the 0.3 FTE for physical education at the elementary school. How many physical education teachers do we currently have to cover the 8 elementary schools? So at this point, every elementary school currently has a full 1.0 PE teacher, with the exception of one of our elementary schools, Orchard Hills Elementary School. Orchard Hills currently has a 0.7 PE teacher, FTE assigned, and we're looking to bring Orchard Hills in line with the other 7 elementary schools.
Questions on this from board members? Okay, I see none.
All right, Mr. Riccitelli.
Yep, thank you. So question number 18, this is on account 1121. Can you discuss the need for 3 new secretarial positions at the high schools? And actually there are not 3 new positions at the high schools. This this all revolves around the change from what were previously non-unionized positions that joined the secretarial union. So we have to reclassify them. And so if you refer to in the revised Roman numeral 14 in the executive summary, you can see the shift. So previously or currently, there's 2 full-time college and career aides at the high schools. There are 2.5 guidance secretaries at the 2 high schools, and then all of the greeters. So those positions previously were in either account 1128 or 1129. We've just moved them to 1121, which is the secretarial union line. So there's 3 additional and 3 on the plus side, 3 on the negative side. It's just a shift of where we classify them.
Is that clear for board members? Any questions?
Okay, number 19, and we're now in the benefits account, the 2000s. Account number 2006, based on actual experience, is this indicative of the norm expected? Is this in line with the trends in the past? And of course, this line refers to the Blue Cross Blue Shield over 65. The board members, most of you know from being on the board before, that active employees' health insurance is paid for through the city budget in the city's self-insurance fund, but contractually obligated health insurance for retirees is carried on the board section. And also, you'll recall that in the 2021 year, we moved plans for the retirees from a traditional Medicare plan to a Medicare Advantage plan, which saved in that year alone almost $750,000. So we had that huge drop, and now we are in the Medicare Advantage plan, and we're going to see the trend continue to go up, similar to what it was going up before, in the 6 to 10% per year range. And that's one of the reasons why we went to the new plan, because the increases were becoming double digit. So we brought the benchmark down, but now we're going to see incremental increases as the cost of healthcare goes up.
Makes sense for board members? Any questions?
I have a quick question.
Yes, Ms.
Does-
Doyle.
Thank you. Does the amount of the insurance plan change on the number of retirees in the account? Because I think I remember from the personnel reports that we are seeing an increase in retirements. Is there going to be a flattening out of, there may be a higher increase this year and not as big of a high increase next year, because a lot of our retirements have kind of been accounted for in a period of time?
Not really. We the major reason for increases in healthcare insurance are just the healthcare industry itself goes up every single year. The number of retirees, people are living longer, so there are more retirees going on our rolls and less coming off. And so, but that number really doesn't account for the large increase. The increase is because the cost of medical insurance is just more expensive each year.
Questions from board members? Okay, I see none.
Okay. Question 20 starts off the contracted services, the 3000s accounts, and account 3308. Can you expand on the savings in this account of, expand on the savings in this account of $11,700? Is it included in the increase reflected in account 4200, or is it true savings? And due to various other funding sources such as ESSER, Coronavirus Relief Fund, and the Emergency Connectivity Fund, otherwise known as ECF, we were able to make cutbacks in this account. So that is a true savings, and it was not shifted to account 4200.
So then would we expect to see in future years this line going up?
Well, we won't have the benefit of these grants every year. So I would expect that at some point in the future, maybe when ARP is expended in 2 years, we probably will see this account start to creep up again as we go into replacement cycles and things like that.
Any other questions from board members? All right, I see none.
Okay.
It's getting towards 9 o'clock. Maybe we can, trying to see how much more we have to do. I think, we do need to meet tomorrow. I'm committed to doing that. So I would, board members, can I suggest that maybe we stop? Facilities 4000s has several questions to it. I think, well, maybe we'll do just the 4000s and we'll stop after that. How does that sound? Okay.
Okay, so yeah, in the 4000s, question number 21, regarding the ventilation upgrading, what impact will it have on utility bills for heating HVAC systems? So in areas where we are adding air conditioning, and in areas where we're adding additional ventilation units, we can expect increases in consumption for electricity for those things. However, if we're upgrading existing ventilation units, they may be replaced with more efficient equipment. So there will be some mitigation of the increases, but I think overall, we should expect, if we're adding additional air conditioning and additional ventilation units, that we are going to have additional electric costs.
Questions on that? Okay, I see none.
Okay, the question number 22 is with regard to account 4101. Given the $170,000 increase in cost for heat energy and the volatility of that account, have there been any discussions about moving away from natural gas to a more predictable heating source, such as geothermal or electric heat? And knowing that changing heating sources would be very costly, what has been determined about creating a way for the district to better plan for the dramatic swings in energy costs? And I would begin by saying, in actuality, these accounts, the utility accounts, have been very stable for the last 5 or 6 years. We've been able to actually take advantage of historically low prices, especially for natural gas. And we've done that because we've joined consortiums and we've locked in prices. We've gone out for 2 or 3 years and locked in prices for natural gas and for electricity. So if you look at the historical trend in the budget books, you'll see that these accounts have been very stable. Now that brings us to today. Due to really global conditions, natural gas shortages, and other factors, policy changes toward more green energy, those kinds of things are changing what previously was stable markets. And right now, these are very unstable markets. So in electricity, we have 1 more year left on our stabilization contract. So we're in decent shape this year for electricity. We increased the amount budgeted for by $50,000. And that really is because we anticipate greater consumption due to running the exhaust fans longer, adding some units potentially during that budget year. But the bulk of this cost is natural gas. And, our consultants that we talked to predicted that this could go up, 15 to 25%. And our locked in price expired in November of 2021. So we are working with them to strategically ride out this period of instability and hope that in the new year things start to level off a little bit and we can get into another stabilization contract. I will say that the second part of the question, with knowing that changes in heating sources can be very costly, have we looked at alternative ways of doing things? And I just pointed out a couple of them in the answer here. 2 things that we're doing. We're working with the city on the microgrid project that they have at Parsons and Harborside, and also the fuel cell project at the Housatonic wastewater plant. Both of those take heat that's generated in the specific areas, either a generator or the heat that's coming off the the power that's generated from the wastewater treatment plants. And we're pumping that heat and pumping that electricity to the Parsons building, the Harborside. And in the case of the Housatonic fuel cell, that heat and electricity is being pumped to Foreign High School, which is our largest of our consumers of both heat and electricity. So we're constantly looking at those kinds of things. Not exactly related to the heating part of it, but you all know that we have solar on all of our buildings. So we're always looking and working with our consultants to figure out better ways and less expensive ways of doing things. So I'll shut up there and answer any questions that you have.
Further questions or comments, Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. Just on the the expiration of our natural gas contract. So currently we're going month to month with our natural gas provider.
Yes.
Okay. And they'll allow us to do that until we deem the cost of energy to be at a point where we feel comfortable entering into a long-term agreement with them.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
we're going month to month, and obviously we're paying more for December than we did in November
right.
by a long shot. But in working with the consultants, they really think that things will start to stabilize a little bit come March, April, and we're hoping that at that point we can lock in. It's still going to be a higher price because the cost of natural gas is just going up, and it's not predicted to come down anytime soon. But we think that will be a more strategic time to look at the potential of locking in.
I think if I remember correctly, when you originally brought this to our attention, it was even significantly higher than the 170,000 that we're anticipating for the budget. So it already seems to have come down or settled down a little bit, which is great. So I don't know how you'll come back to us with when we've finalized that contract, or if you will, but it would be nice to know where we land on that.
Sure. Yeah,
Thanks.
we can do that. Yeah, I'll probably include that maybe in a quarterly report down the road.
Okay, that'd be great.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ratner?
So I may have missed this, Mr. Richatelli, and you've probably said it, so I'm sorry if I did miss it.
That's okay.
The question is, when you make this negotiation, is it directly with the natural gas company or is it a private company?
No, we work with a number of different consortiums of municipalities, other boards of education, things like that. So it's not with any specific contractor. It's where we can get the best price in the market.
That's what I thought. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Fowler?
Thank you. Hopefully just a quick question. How much are we paying now for natural gas, and what do we anticipate paying for January and maybe even February?
Good question, Mr. Fowler. But I don't have it off the top of my head. So we will get that. We'll answer that question for you tomorrow night.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure.
Other questions? Ms. Ratner, are you all set? We'll put your hand down if you are.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. Okay, I see none.
Okay. Question number 23 has an A and a B. So this is with regard to account 4200. Does this include the new bus attendance tracking software that's been discussed? And the answer is no. The attendance tracking system was purchased with COVID-related savings in the 2021 year. So the budget, the 2022, this budget proposal 2022-2023 does not include the initial price, but it does include ongoing software maintenance, which is relatively small.
Questions on that?
Okay. Hearing none. So B, can we expand on the benefits of a voice over internet protocol, otherwise known as VoIP system? So we've had our VoIP system in the district for about 8 years now. And there are many advantages to the traditional analog lines. And first and foremost, it's cost. It has to do with cost. You eliminate all of the hardwired spaghetti that previously runs through the ceilings of all of the different schools, which are hard to maintain. So there's a much less maintenance costs. We run through high speed wiring, and that high speed wiring is much more reliable. It's clearer than the analog lines were before. In addition, we are able to eliminate, for the most part, long distance calling charges. So, in general, voice over IP is the preferred method, and that's what most are going to. We're actually looking right now at the next generation of voice over IP, which would be a cloud-based system. So we're looking at that now. We just had a meeting today with a potential vendor for that, and what that would do is that's a very reliable system. There's lots of redundancy. And probably the biggest thing is that it will eliminate the need for maintaining and replacing servers, and which are very costly. So for many reasons, voice over IP is the right way to go. And we're looking at the next generation. And along with looking at the next generation, we're hoping that can save us money.
Questions from board members on this? I see none.
Okay, so the last one in the 4,000s account, with regard to accounts 4304 and 4305, which are the buildings and grounds projects. Past boards had prioritized these accounts to support our aging buildings, and in the proposed budget, there's been a reduction in these investments. Can you discuss why these line items have decreased so much? And I guess I would say that in the past, previous boards have largely supported the district in using any end of year funds specifically for buildings and grounds projects, which kept us kept us on pace with keeping our schools and our facilities in real good condition. The past couple of years, we haven't been able to do that because of the COVID expenses. And so the budget that we've put before you may be a little optimistic, but we're hoping that by the time we get to the end of June of 2023, we're hoping that we're past these COVID expenses. We're hoping that the board will support us again in taking some of that, if there is any end of year money, and redirecting that towards buildings and grounds projects. And that's the way we've been able to stay ahead of things. We don't want to fall behind for sure, but that's really where we are.
I'm sorry, Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. Mr. Riccitelli, can we just speak a little bit more in detail on this? So if I just look at 4305, which is the grounds projects,
Mhm.
in 1920, we expended 258,687. 2020, 2021, it was 142,766. And this year that number is going to drop to 51,211. So when the first two numbers, the expended from 1920 and the 2021, does that include the end of year expenditures, or is that monies that
Yes.
were budgeted?
No, in the 1920 was, that probably included at the tail end of monies that were put aside from previous budgets or previous budget surpluses. And then yeah, in 2021, 22.
Those would be dollars that the expended dollars would include the end of year funds that we put aside
Yes,
for that
it
if they were encumbered in that year.
Correct.
But as far as I remember, we didn't transfer any monies in 2020, 21, because we tried to take all that money and put it into the COVID non-lapsing account for COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, let me get a more precise answer to your question, and we'll have it for you tomorrow night.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from board members on question 24? All right, Ms. Ratner.
I think since we're contemplating stopping at this point, I want to thank you so much for answering our questions to make things so much clearer for us. Appreciate your time and efforts to give such details. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I had said that we would stop at the end of the 4,000s. Board members, does anybody have, or if you have additional questions that you'd like addressed tomorrow, please send them to me as soon as you can, tonight if possible, first thing in the morning, otherwise, so that we can have answers to them tomorrow evening. We'll pick up where we left off and then address any additional questions that have come up. Anything from this evening that we expect additional information on, or any new questions that you might have. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Does anybody have any general questions for me? All right. So we had no requests for a public comment this evening, so we don't have to address that agenda item. And if there's no other questions, I don't see any hands up. Just going to take one more quick look. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I
For a
second.
second. Mr. Fowler seconds. Are there any objections to adjourning at 9:12 this evening? Okay, we'll stand adjourned until tomorrow. We'll see you all at 7 o'clock. Same time, same place. Have a good evening. Stay warm.
Like-